And it looks like we're already a turn into this game.
Yeah.
No big deal. So turn 1 was definitely Swamp Thoughtseize on Matt, or from Matt to Eddie. And looks like Matt's playing up. He's not. We're not resolving a hand first. All Matt's just playing open.
And just for anyone who's just tuning in, welcome to our Friday Night Modern here at GameSwap Mason, brought to you by Top Deck Productions. We've got Jun versus 8-Rack. So
here we have him to Turok.
I mean, for all intents and purposes.
That's what it is.
Eddie's got to get rid of these 2 cards in his hand. They're all good. He doesn't want to get rid of any of them.
He needs
that third land to cast the Mulligans command, and then he has a Lightning Bolt. And Lightning Bolt isn't doing anything in this matchup.
The first few turns of this game were pretty apparent. We traded Thoughtseizes. Matt took something. I don't know who was on the play. There are 2 Thoughtseizes in the graveyard. Eddie obviously discarded that Fatal Push to that Raven's Crime, and then we threw away a land and a Lightning Bolt to the Wrench Mine. Lightning Bolt is not super important in this matchup. It is reach to get that game closed out, but it is not much more.
And Eddie drew a land like a champion so that he actually gets to cast the Mulligans command now.
And he just slammed it. So we've got a Mulligans command in response to Matt's discard spell of choice, which is Smallpox. Interesting. And the only 2 modes that matter here are shock and discard.
Yeah.
Nothing else is relevant.
And he gets rid of a Raven's Crime.
See what I mean about so Matt didn't actually discard a card. He discarded a Raven's Crime, which doesn't count. That card's still in his hand.
Yep.
He can still cast it. He has a
land.
Marsh Flats.
Yeah, he can discard that land.
He still wants to play it because he's trying to get that Liliana into play, and he just sacked one of his own lands to a Smallpox. But look at all the work that Smallpox did. It did 1 damage to either player, which doesn't matter.
So here we are again. Both players are living off the top of their deck.
And it's turn 2.
It's like turn 3.
Both of these players may as well have just cast 1 with nothing.
Yeah. That's better for Matt because that's his entire game plan.
That is his,
than it is for Eddie. Eddie has nothing. That being said, Eddie has more creatures. He has more reoccurring sources of damage. Matt still needs to. They both still need to win this game. They both still need a way to win this game. Eddie can draw a Goyf here, and then Matt has to get his Affliction or his Rack. A Rack would be big game here for Matt.
Eddie's top decks are generally better. Table. Matt, he's where he wants to be, but he doesn't have any of those cards that he wants. No. He doesn't have a Shrieking Affliction.
There you go. Goyf, right off the top, like a champion.
That card's big. It's like a 3 or 4 right now.
We've got
a Planeswalker.
We've got instant, sorcery, creature, land, Planeswalker, 5/6. Now it's a 3-turn clock.
Matt definitely
once he gets it going.
A healthy pool of answers to this.
Oh yeah, totally.
But obviously he's not seeing them. He might have a Fatal Push in his hand.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this Tarmogoyf dies now. And I think that's smart, Eddie playing that land out. That way it doesn't just get discarded. Or he's going to want to play the land at some point. He may as well play it now. I don't think Matt has anything.
Yeah, even
all right.
We have a Mutavault, but
we've got a blocker. We got a blocker, ladies and gentlemen.
Mutavault draws a card. Even at this rate, Matt has to take that Goyf off the field. Even if he draws a Rack or a Shrieking Affliction, he's not in a good enough position to really ride that to the.
I'm not opposed to Eddie just playing out all the cards in his hands at this point. There's no reason to keep. There's no reason not to. He's not protecting other cards.
He has the mana to actually play everything.
Yep.
So what's the problem?
You want to hold on to your lands if you're protecting other cards, but he's not. And Matt has land destruction.
For sure. So this game looks like it's really swung in Eddie's favor. Simply because Matt's draws haven't really lined up.
No.
And Eddie's really have. He drew a second.
It was whoever got a threat first.
Yeah. Eddie had the threat out first. The Smallpox dealt with it. That's what I was talking about. Smallpox did so much work in that turn.
Yeah, and then he drew another one.
He has 4 of them.
Champion.
There are, after all, 4 Tarmogoyfs in Jund.
I don't think you're allowed to play less. I don't think you're actually allowed to play less than 4 Tarmogoyfs.
For those of you just joining us, Jund has 4 Tarmogoyfs.
Yeah. I have seen people play less, budgetary reasons.
We have the potential for Eddie to win this game right now. Lightning Bolt. I doubt that's a Lightning Bolt. He just tapped 2 mana. We got something, though. There's something going on here. Eddie's going to win this turn or next turn. I don't think Matt has a way to get out of this. There's the Scavenging Ooze. Yeah,
Scavenging Ooze kind of ensures it.
I think Scavenging Ooze...
Matt clearly doesn't have a removal spell now. It would have to be a removal spell. He doesn't have it. He has a Dismember.
Not... Oh, actually, Dismember lines up here, sort of. If he can end step Dismember the Scavenging Ooze because it's not big enough to kill the Goyf. Excuse me, the Goyf is too big to be killed by it. And
I would hard cast...
Slide either another... Well, not another Dismember, but a Fatal Push off the top of his deck.
Yeah, and Matt's going to go for it. He's hard casting this Dismember. He's not using any mana to kill the Scavenging Ooze.
He's not using any life.
He's not using any life. To kill the Scavenging Ooze, Eddie is going to eat the Tarmogoyf that's in his graveyard.
To gain some life.
To gain some life because reasons. There's really no reason not to.
No downside.
And then that gives Matt the out of drawing another removal spell.
And he drew an Urborg and scoops it up.
So we saw, like, and that's the thing about 8-Rack is, like, they can only afford to place so much creature removal in their deck. They need they're synergistic in the sense that, like, every card is trying to break their opponent's synergy. They need all of these cards that get rid of cards.
The first
you might play against a deck that doesn't play creatures. You might play against a combo deck that doesn't care about creatures. Your Lilianas and your Fatal Pushes and your Dismembers, they don't look so cool.
Liliana is really important just because of that discard engine.
Fair enough. I'm just saying that, like, all your other cards are doing that and paying 3 mana for a card that discards a card.
That is a heck of a sideboard coming in from Matt. The cards he just picked up were Collective Brutalities for sure.
Nile Spellbomb, Lingering Souls.
All solid choices.
We see these black decks splashing white for Lingering Souls. Pack Rat, there's no reason not to.
You just stick the Godless Shrines in there. The opportunity cost is 0. And
you're 2 colors. Who gives a shit?
And you get to play Lingering Souls. I think you have to play 2 colors in this format, minimum. Like, playing 1 color doesn't really get you anywhere.
No, I think you should play 2 colors, or I think you should play all of them.
Like, playing 1 color, the advantage of playing a monocolor deck in Modern is that you don't have to even think twice about Blood Moon. You are not punished at all by any land destruction. All of your lands do the same thing.
There's a blackmail.
All of your lands do the exact same thing. They tap for whatever color you're playing. However, your card selection is just cut into little ribbons. Now, when you play 2 colors, your card selection goes very wide. You can find a card that does anything.
Yeah.
In any given 2 colors.
I especially like the enemy 2-color pairings because every color does a certain set of things. It's pretty much established at this point. They tweak it every now and then, maybe come up with something new. But what every color in the color pie does is, more or less known. Every color has 2 ally colors and 2 enemy colors. And more likely than not, their enemy colors do stuff that they don't do. They have absolutely no access to.
Right, for sure. So, like, when you play, for example, mono black,
you have no way of dealing with enchantments. You have no way of dealing with artifacts.
There are actually 0 cards in this entire game of Magic the Gathering in mono black that answer artifacts.
All of the cards that do.
Excuse me. There is exactly 1, Gates of Phyrexia, which is a card from Legends. It is not legal in this format.
Okay. Well, yeah, any card that is black that deals, like, we saw Golgari Charm in round 2. That destroys an enchantment. That's because it's green. That's something that green does. And that's why playing black and green together is really cool because, like, green does a bunch of stuff that black doesn't.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. So, yeah, and when you make that white splash in this 8-Rack deck, you get to play Lingering Souls.
Lingering Souls is big game here.
I'm going to say it for the 3rd time tonight. Lingering Souls is one of the best cards in this format. It creates 4 bodies.
I'll say this.
There are a lot of decks that just can't beat that.
Lingering Souls is a Modern staple.
For sure.
Through and through.
It's right there next to Lightning Bolt, Thoughtseize.
And it's really interesting. It's like just this inconspicuous little card. It's like you pay 5 and you get 4 1/1s with flying. And it's like some decks don't care about that at all. I never appreciated it as a burn player until I started playing Affinity, and I'm like, this card does what exactly?
I first encountered Lingering Souls when I was a casual player in high school. When I first started this game, I had the Sorin half of the Sorin and Tibalt dual deck that had one copy of Lingering Souls in it, and I recognized its power when I won some dumb little local high school tournament with Lingering Souls.
Yeah, I bet you wanted to put more copies of that card in that deck.
What do you think the first cards that I bought, aside from that dual deck, were?
Wow.
It was 3 more Lingering Souls. And I just put them in there. That card was insane. and that's just, that was just some dumb little casual tournament. I think I won like a booster pack.
Lingering Souls, yeah, it's interesting. Like, Modern gets to really showcase the power of that card. Matt doesn't have any lands.
I think he's fine. He can just keep it.
So he's going to put that back. Obviously, you wait for your opponent. As much as you want to put that back immediately. You need to know if your opponent is also mulliganing. You don't want to give it away because, maybe it's a questionable 7. Like, you'd be better off going to 6. But if your opponent goes to 6, you're already ahead.
Remember, when you're making your mulliganing decisions, if your hand is absolutely great or if it's absolutely terrible, always put a confused look on your face if your opponent gets to choose first. Make your opponent think, just bluff like you don't know what you're doing.
Matt's looking at them one at a time. All right, what do we got?
Why do people do that?
Oh, I do that. I like to slow roll it. I need to figure out how to do the trick where you put the card in behind your other cards, and then there's something that they do on camera to slow roll the draw. It's like you put it behind all your other cards and then slide it to the front. I don't know.
I don't know how often people actually try to track cards in your opponent's hand visually.
That has 2 Mutavaults, so the opportunity cost of Mutavault here is really showing itself. I mean, most of the time it doesn't matter. Who cares? Like, it's Mutavault. Like, there we go. Like a champ.
All skill.
All skill. That's right. We got a fast land. Matt's good to go.
That was the absolute perfect land to draw too.
Okay, so the opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is like Matt's playing a deck that most of the cards in his deck only cost like black. 1 black.
All right, so.
And he also plays like Urborgs and stuff to make the Mutavaults tap for black. So the opportunity cost of playing Mutavault is that it's a win condition. And the opportunity of playing Mutavault is that it's a win condition, and the cost is that sometimes you're going to have a 1-lander with a Mutavault and you're not going to be able to cast any of your spells.
So if you're like our stream guy and you don't know what opportunity cost means, it basically is the comparative upside downside to running a card in your deck.
There you go.
So Mutavault, the downside is you're trying to make colored mana and it does not. But the benefit is that it is a clock, and it enhances your normal game plan by taking 1 to 2, maybe 3, 4 turns off of your main clock.
Yep.
The opportunity cost is low because you're playing a quote-unquote monocolor deck with a very light splash in one direction. So the downside
that also plays Urborg.
Right, and you play Urborg.
And that's why they play Urborg.
So the downside is very minimal, and the upside is very, I wouldn't say it's insane, but it's not bad. For example, when the Eldrazi-tron lists were rolling around, the land base was so bizarre. We were playing 3 to 4 Ghost Quarters because the opportunity cost was actually just 0. You're not worried about colors, so you just play as many utility lands as you can. So we had 4 Ghost Quarters, we had Seagate Wreckage, we had all sorts of just crazy weird lands that are all just colorless. And they all come in untapped. Because, from a balancing standpoint, a card that doesn't make any colors
Liliana
can be better. But when the whole deck is colorless, that downside just disappears.
Volt's not doing anything. Kind of surprised it's still in the deck. It kills Mutavault. Who cares? Eddie brought in Surgical Extraction. What is he trying to Surgical? Here again we see this card. What is he trying to Surgical?
If you can get one of those 1-mana win condition cards out of his hand,
okay,
and Surgical it, then Matt only has 4 win conditions in his deck.
But Eddie more than likely took out his discard spells.
That's not.
He brought in Collective Brutality.
That's not entirely
enough.
untrue, but there's cards like Raven's Crime that you can Surgical.
You can Surgical Lingering Souls. I'm saying it's loose.
It is.
I'm going to call loose on Surgical.
Like we talked before, it's a very overboarded card. I don't think I would bring it in this matchup.
No,
Maybe
you want to
Eddie has
bring in
some
more
sort of-
threats. You want Obstinate Baloth. Can we bring up Obstinate Baloth?
Eddie might
so I
be
can
thinking
talk
of
about how
something that
awesome
I'm not.
Obstinate Baloth is. I've had Obstinate Baloth just hard cast against me.
And you know, if we're talking about Obstinate Baloth, we have to talk about Guerrilla Tactics.
I'm not talking about Guerrilla
You know, now that
Tactics.
Hollow One, Guerrilla Tactics might be a card.
It's not a card.
Hollow One.
I understand, and that's why Obstinate Baloth. Okay, Obstinate Baloth, this is how you beat discard decks. This is how you beat Liliana. This is how you beat anything that this 8-rag deck's trying to do. This is how you beat the randomness of Hollow One. Obstinate Baloth, it's a 4/4 for 4. When it comes into play, it gains you 4 life. I have no idea why it does that. Are you supposed to eat the Baloth? Do you milk the Baloth? I don't know why it gains you life. I'll never understand
Obstinate
that.
Baloth was that thing from that Star Wars. The new
I
Star Wars.
don't understand why it gains you 4 life. The important part is if a spell or an ability an opponent controls would make you discard it, you get to just put it into play. It doesn't go to your graveyard.
It's the little baby Thragtusk token all grown up.
No.
It's the adolescent Thragtusk.
I don't want to hear it. I do not understand why it gains you life, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. Obstinate Baloth is how you beat these decks because they're going to make you discard and you get to pick, and then you just pick the Baloth. You pick to discard. You choose to discard your own Baloth, but they still control the source that made you do it, and then it just goes into play. You have a 4/4. It's great. It's great, and we've seen an uptick in the number of Baloths being Baloth is real game right now because of Hollow One. Great, I'm gonna put this Hollow One into play. Great, they put their Hollow One into play. You put your own 4/4 into. You put the Obstinate Baloth into play. You gain 4 life. You have a 4/4 to block. And it undoes they put two Hollow Ones into play. Well, you've just done the damage the other one's going to do when you trade with the first one.
Trade into the first one and you just feign the attack of the second.
Yep.
So here we've got a 6 power swing in, firing up the old vault.
That's if he's even playing it. Okay, Eddie's going to scoop him up. So Eddie's seen enough.
I think that was probably right. We had 6 damage.
I mean, look at Matt's board.
Eddie's going to go to 8, and then he's going to go to 5 on his own upkeep.
Yeah.
And then Matt's going to untap and kill him.
Yeah, Matt drew a fast land like a champ. Otherwise, that was a non-game. And, I mean, all skill.
So we're going to... Yeah,
you drew the right land.
That's modern, though.
Yeah. No, I'm going to be straight up with you. I was talking about this with a friend yesterday. I think, you want to talk about skill? Look, we get to play these decks that other people build. We get to play 4 copies of any card that we want, and we get to play these decks whenever. We get to play them all the time. You have all the time in the world to learn to play your deck. You want to talk about skill?
Play limited.
Play limited. You have to build the deck yourself from the same pool of cards that everyone else has. You get one of each card. And you only get to play the deck 3 or 4 times. Sans a limited GP where you get to play 9 rounds, 8 or 9 rounds with it, whatever. You have a very finite amount of time to learn to play the deck. You just have to be a fundamentally good player.
Here's where I want to distinguish skill and strategy.
Yes.
What modern is about learning your deck.
Exactly.
And your matchups. You are in a far greater capacity rewarded in modern for knowing the ins and outs of your deck and how your deck plays against the decks.
About knowledge. And if you want to call knowledge skill, whatever. We're splitting hairs here. But it's about knowledge. Every deck has these weird little interactions within their these self-contained weird little interactions. And then how all the cards line up against their opponent. There's a lot to learn. I read an article recently. It was talking about modern, standard, limited, when you should play the best deck. This is really cool. So in standard, you have 5 decks. All right?
At any given time.
You got 5 decks. There's 5. So that means there's 5 decks, and you can play against, and any of those decks can play against any of the other 5. So there's 5 decks, 5 different matchups. It's a 5 times 5 grid. It's 25 different matchups. You grind games online, do leagues, play test with a team. Eventually, you and your team, given It really wouldn't take all that long. We'll learn all 25 matchups, and you will be able to determine with your own data which deck is the best,
Right.
which one has the highest win percentage. Now, in Modern, where there's 12 decks that are good at any given time, and another 12 that people that have no business seeing play and people play anyway, that's 24. Let's just call it 25. We'll round it up. You have 25 decks against another 25 decks. It's a lot of matchups.
For sure.
It's a lot of matchups. And the only way to get ahead is to play the same deck over and over and over. How else are you supposed to have a sideboard strategy for a deck that's 1% of the field? Modern rewards specialization, and it rewards knowledge.
I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I don't think that's. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying
It's
is
just what your cup of tea
you want.
is.
Yeah, if you want to talk about skill, play limited. You want to talk about knowledge, like leveraging your knowledge.
So let's talk about how this game's
That's
developed.
Modern.
This game that we're watching is in a really interesting state. Matt has got a really early rack out.
Yes.
But Eddie, I'm going to call the anti-rack. It's still dealing damage to him, but not nearly as much as that rack would be doing to him if he weren't drawing a card,
Yeah.
extra card every single time.
Still don't know why these bolts are in Eddie's deck.
Well, sometimes you just got to bolt the Mutavault. It's kind of like a bird. It taps for mana.
Anyway, yeah. Eddie gets to draw cards every turn. He can draw threats.
And if he's really lucky, he's going to flip land. Ooh, that's not what that's not lucky.
It's awful. This is why you don't play. This is why Jund has kind of fallen off. Like, Jund wants to play these 4 Bloodbraid Elves, and sometimes and wants to play Bobs, and sometimes that's gonna happen. Sometimes you're gonna hit Bloodbraid Elf with your Bob, and
that's no bueno.
That's not where you want to be. You're gonna take 4. You have to make up for that with your Bloodbraid Elf somehow. And and that's fine sometimes, but there's a lot of decks in the format that can punish you for that. Like we were talking about the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost of having these two cards in your deck.
Eddie actually has 3 cards in his hand. We can't see the third because the sleeve is black.
Right.
But he's gonna. I don't know if I agree with that, Sturgill, but that's probably what I'd discard. Talking is hard. That's probably what I would discard.
He did. He's gonna bolt. He's gonna bolt Matt.
He's gonna bolt Matt. Maybe he knows something. Maybe he's just trying to go for the race.
The opportunity cost of having like Dark Confidant and Bloodbraid Elf in your deck is that you get to draw extra cards, but sometimes you're gonna draw Bloodbraid Elf.
Do you remember those?
And Bloodbraid Elf makes up for it.
Do you remember those Mardu decks? Those Mardu Nahiri decks with Bobs and Emrakul?
Russian roulette, baby.
Oh man, every turn you just might die, just randomly die.
And this is gonna happen, and so this will happen. Like sometimes you're gonna reveal Bloodbraid Elf with your Bob, and you're gonna take 4. There are enough decks in Modern right now that can punish you for that, where people are really moving away from Jund, just in general. They're moving away from Bob. We're seeing like Mardu Pyromancer be the black deck of choice, the black like discard, like grindy deck of choice. They're not playing Bob. A buddy of ours, you all know and love him, Michael Farrell, has been playing just good old black-green rock. Our buddy Michael Belfato is a long-time aficionado of the deck. They don't play Bob. They just play like a Tracker, a Courser maybe, but Tracker's big game right now.
I really like Belfato's Spicy Worm Harvest engine.
Sometimes he plays that. The engine of his deck is mostly like Life from the Loam.
Yeah, so Belfato's deck is trying to Life from the Loam, like tech edges all day.
All right, we've seen. Well, this is just going to close out the game here. I think Eddie's seen enough.
Eddie is taking.
I think we saw
7 damage on his up.
Eddie hit another Bloodbraid Elf. That or he got a land and drew the Bloodbraid Elf.
That's not true. So now, if I recall correctly, the way he triggers stack is active, non-active.
Eddie's dead.
Yeah, so
he's just dead.
If it weren't for that Mutavault, the triggers would stack active, non-active. So Bob trigger would go on the stack, and then the rack triggers would go on the stack. So those rack triggers would actually resolve and deal 2 to Eddie before that extra card went in his hand and had the opportunity to reduce the damage from rack. But that third rack effect is going to finish off Eddie in conjunction with that Mutavault swinging in, just to be sure. and that's going to be the match.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it for round 4. We got some time left. Maybe my dude Connor can find another match for you guys. I've got to get to work, so I'm going to be peacing out. We'll have a guest commentator for you guys for round 5. So, yeah, stick around for that. Oh boy. I'm actually supposed to be at work like right now. We were supposed to be there earlier.